chị. Giang tỷ đang ở hội Dry County for Women, Republican for Women. Ok, tỷ trong cái hội của những cô con gái tuyệt vời của nước Mỹ vì ủng hộ tổng thống Trump. Hôm nay ăn mừng nha anh chị, mừng cho tổng thống Donald Trump của mình thắng lớn nha anh chị. Ok, nên là hôm nay Giang tỷ đang ở đây. Có gì nhờ anh chị share cái video này ra với mọi người. Hôm nay là tiệc quý anh chị, mình sẽ là ăn mừng cho tổng thống đại ca của mình được lên 4 năm có thể là thêm 8 năm nữa cho phó tổng thống sẽ lo anh chị. Rồi Giang tỷ cho anh chị xem. Bây giờ tại vì Giang tỷ tới sớm thôi, tỷ trong ban tổ chức cho nên tới sớm để phụ chứ chưa có bây giờ. Ok, bây giờ Giang tỷ cho anh chị chút nữa sẽ cho đông hơn. Bây giờ cho anh chị xem qua ha.
Because I know he's existing, but I was right there. I missed last night. Me too.
But you know what? He is Jesus.
Well, I mean, someone who is the president of the organization that we want to see gone.
Well, I don't even, we turn to
So that's it.
what you see is what you get.
Right, what he's a total New Yorker.
Yeah, so I appreciate that.
Yeah.
You're real. Yeah.
Yeah, well, he is real. He's not a
Chưa có tới
politician.
giờ ha. Okay.
A lot of Christians, they say, oh, I can stand because you're You're missing the point. He's running
Xung quanh đây nha, ở ngoài này Giang tỷ đang ở trong
Well, that's what
ở
the
ngoài.
pastor said in those different podcasts that were sent around. He was so good, especially the young man out of Rockville.
I love him.
Oh, my kids go to his church.
Oh, he's amazing.
And, you know, he said, you're not electing a pastor. You're not electing, you know, Jesus is not running. This is a human man. So, yeah. That,
I said for years and years, we don't need any more politicians. We need a businessman.
he's gonna clean out this
And he
swamp.
will. Between him and
He's already
what's his-
started.
But I think it's also wonderful that he can forgive and like he named Marco Rubio. And they hated each other.
Yeah,
And
you know
that's
what, Nikki
wonderful.
Haley and Pompeo, you know, it upsets me about Pompeo. I've always loved Pompeo.
Me and you.
No, that underneath against Trump until a few months ago. I heard that.
When he was
He was
Mar-a-Lago, that's when he
undermined.
went.
And I thought to myself, why Pompeo? Why? Because I thought that he was so great with the foreign affairs. And then when he did that, Trump liked
He's
him.
not a good man, and he sued Dr. King. He's not a good man.
And you know what? Carlson to serve on. He needs to serve somewhere with him. Well, look at Elon Musk. Look at him. Look at him.
Well, they're now saying, and I'm sure you saw it, they're now saying there will be a conflict of interest if he appoints Trump to certain, I mean, if Trump appoints Elon to certain things because of all his companies. There's some stuff in there right now that they're all talking about.
Well, that's okay.
Are you recording?
There's not a lot of people. Let me tell you, they're taking people from the Senate, which is leaving a vacancy. They're taking people from the Senate that have been voted in by the people. They're taking them and putting them in these positions like Marco Rubio.
They asked that before I was up.
I was so pleased with that because I felt like, you know, that is
Oh,
good to
Lisa Stefano. Okay. there's several, I know y'all seen it, that they're taking them from the Senate, so that leaves an open position. And Lisa Stefanik is represented in New York, she was representing in New York, so guess who's got to fill that spot? Not Whitmire, the other lady in New York.
Well, yeah.
She's got to put somebody there. It's the governor that replaces that senator.
That's what they do it not under, that's
Okay,
what
so there's something going on, I was listening to Fox News.
Tucker is the one to find out that.
It's a way of
They're doing is
finagling,
sneaky.
they're talking about that.
Really?
Yeah.
That we
There's
can
a
get.
way of finagling.
They could put a. I think there's enough good people that are solid, you know? I know it sounds crazy, but people are just.
Yeah, members will try to say that once you go to DC.
Are you interested in moving?
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess.
Well, all I know is that the Republicans, there's people that speak, because Mitch McConnell, he started, it's just, they're gonna, and listen, those three, I mean, two of them, I think that, Rick Scott would be the only one out of the three.
Such a
Yeah.
what Tom says. Yeah. What do you think about the yeah. Stephanie.
Yeah.
I love him.
Yes.
They were talking about him, you know, that picture of him at, 25 years ago, whatever his standardized. They called him Stub.
He is a new sheriff in town. And the illegal.
I know the people that live down there are so gracious.
And don't you know they
Oh,
are?
that's just been so hard. Once those rangers.
Well, because, okay, someone told me, oh, they don't let
That's unconstitutional.
illegals did vote. Illegals did vote. In California, there are the blue states that no one had
The
anything.
illegals, they're letting.
They tried it in Texas. They tried it in Texas. But then we had good.
Greg Gavin, what,
They nipped that in the
did you know
bud.
Gavin Newsom was Nancy Pelosi's husband? I didn't know it either. I did
Their
not.
folks
I know it. I know that. But
Boy,
California.
nothing's falling far from the tree.
Well, that's a problem too.
They do. They do.
Not just, I don't understand how they.
I think they have so much power that they have to believe it because they love that. It's a price of food gonna go down. That's what I keep hearing.
If they get the oil,
Drill, baby, drill. Yeah, because I'm looking forward to that. Do y'all see on Facebook, somebody?
Okay, now, ooh, yeah, now that's loud.
We've been
I gotta
talking
use
for
my
4
earphones,
years.
I don't have it. Okay, ladies at the front, let's move on in. Okay, so, Joanne, be ready to say the prayer. Remember, I gave you 20 minutes notice, so, Karen, we're gonna call the order at, what is this time?
How are you?
11:54.
Good, so much good.
And we're gonna have
Yeah,
Joanne
nice to
Jordan
see
do the
you.
prayer. And I'd like to welcome you all to Tri-County
looking for
Republican. Unfortunately, our speaker is also good with technical issues, so he's fixing up the screen and the projector and all that kind of good stuff. Okay, Joanne?
We have a lot to be thankful for today, don't we?
Amen.
Amen.
Yeah.
Okay, if you'll bow your head, please. Dear Lord, we come today in a time of thanksgiving. We are so excited, Lord, that you have chosen to bless Donald Trump and his team that he's putting together. And we just ask for several things, Lord. First, we ask for a hedge of personal protection around him and the team that he is assembling. We just ask that you would lead them, guide them, help them have a focus, Lord, on you as they begin to assemble all of the monumental tasks that are ahead of them. And Lord, we just ask, secondly, that you would be with his family. Protect each one of them. Protect the vice president, his family. And Lord, we just ask you, it's been very calm since the election, to help this calmness continue. And give each one of us the joy that we should have, and that we have helped to bring America back off of the precipice. And Lord, we just would ask you for us to be each good members and to be good ministers to others. And Lord, we just ask you to be with the other half of the country, and that they will learn that he is going to reduce inflation. He is going to make positive changes. And we ask you, Lord, that they will see benefit too, and that they will recognize it. And Lord, we just ask you to be with all of the ladies and men here today. And we are just so thankful, Lord, that we have an opportunity to express our political opinions and to be able to express our ideas, and also come for a wonderful lunch and socializing. So Lord, it is just with a happy heart that we praise you today and thank you for this deliverance. And we just ask it all in your name. Amen.
Amen. Here.
Thank you, Joanna. Okay, that's Joanna, our wonderful treasurer. And let's see, on the pledges, Jeanette, I want you to give us a big statement.
No, okay.
I think I'll wait for these ladies to come and have a seat. No, you're fine. We have a few more that are coming in as well. All right, if you'll all stand for the pledges. Let's honor the greatest nation on earth. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And now let's do our pledge to the Texas flag, the greatest state in the nation. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
And this is our historian, so smile pretty when you see her, because she's probably flashing a camera that we're gonna put on Facebook or the website, if we ever get the website going, but definitely Facebook. Okay, so the minutes of the October meeting were sent out, and there's copies of the minutes sitting around and on the front table and things like that. Do I have a motion on the minutes?
I move to accept the minutes as written.
Okay, so Mindy Cohen on the minutes, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, John Bradley?
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any comments? Okay, all those in favor of accepting the minutes as written, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you, otherwise you might have had it in the secretary. Okay, let's see, we have, okay, Joanne, can you come back and do the finance report, or are you doing something? She's doing something. Okay. Yeah, if people want to, join together and, sit with people who are already at tables, because, we don't want, anybody just sitting by themselves, or just, a couple, and then we've got 8 sitting at this table. So, but, huh? Well, no, you guys are good, you're free, but I'm just saying, if everybody would like to kind of gather together and more hug and sing Kumbaya for our great victory. Hopefully nobody's going to explode for all the time.
Those two ladies know Bob. Everybody knows Bob.
They probably did.
Like everybody knows Bob.
Oh, yeah,
Everybody
yeah,
knows
she just
Bob.
got married. She just got married last month.
I didn't know Robert until. Well, we see y'all walking.
Okay, last month in the minutes, Karen had the tally from the treasurer's report, and so many of you picked it up. But Kathy wanted me to enter it in the minutes again. For last month in October, we started out with a balance of $8,275.42. We had $437.26 of deposits, and then our withdrawals were $78.96. That gave us an ending balance of $8,633.72. Now, last month, we opened with that same balance, and we've had cash collected for lunches of $1,091. The Square income is pending for this report because I didn't have a copy of the bank statement yet. And then we had expenses. So Square was $21.32. Golf Crest Country Club lunches last month were $900.40. The bank charges a service charge each month, and that was $5. And then Kathy was gracious enough to run over to our new name tag place. It's called In Graphics. And so she got all the name badges that we had collected money for through September. And we have those badges on the table in case you would like to get one. But that was $178.62. The badges have increased in price up to $18. So the closing balance is $8,619.38. And I do see one error that I made. I put 9/11 for the date for the Golf Crest lunches, and it was today. So it should have today's date. So I will correct that, Karen, and send you a new copy of that.
Yeah, I was saying neither Joanne nor I know what day it is, because I was gonna say, depending on which copy of the agenda you have, some of them say it was the 11th, because I was just so excited about Veterans Day. So, while we're thanking our veterans, would all the veterans stand up and be recognized? Any veterans in the room? Come on, okay. Also, elected officials or their representatives, and we did have Stephanie Tanner from Maze's campaign, but she came already. So, anybody precinct chairs? Okay, Karen, stand up and introduce yourself real quick.
Karen Plant, precinct chair, Harris County, 718. Jonette Sheridan, Brazoria County, precinct 18.
I'm Yang Thi Christina Vo, chair 29.
And I'm Kathy Rogers, Galveston, 356. Anybody else? Or representing candidates? I kind of want to introduce our sort of, you know, a candidate representative. But if you would stand up and introduce yourself.
I'm Kay Simpson Talton. Robert and I got married about 6 weeks ago. And he served in the legislature for 16 years, and he retired in 2009.
And I don't know, you know, how many of you have been around for, you know, ever and 2 weeks, but he was such a great conservative, and so I'm so honored to have Kay want to join with us.
Thank you.
And be part of our club, because he was such a rock rib conservative and really, you know, did great things in our state legislature, so I just wanted to give her a little bit of props there. Okay, let's see, we did that, we're working on the website, sponsorships are available. Nominations committee report, Karen Plant. What a clever way not to be nominated for anything but to put yourself on the nominations committee. Yes, Mindy, I knew you were completely into that. Millie, yes, yes.
We'll come up together.
Come on. That's the least y'all can do since you didn't want to hold an office.
We had several reasons not to do it. I have an 11-year-old at home who would not let me give you as much time as you need. But here's Karen, because she spearheaded the whole thing.
She's got a good spirit, yeah. And she really did a good job.
So this is a revised report from October, because at that time we did not have somebody for recording secretary. So the update is President Kathy Rogers, this is for 2025 board. First Vice President Program, Colleen Sullivan.
And Colleen can't be here today because she's getting face
Don't be saying that.
Well, you'll know when she's
Don't be saying that. Don't be saying that.
She's beautiful.
Second Vice President Deborah Jackson, and that's membership. Treasurer Cindy Sitterly. corresponding secretary Joanne Jurin, and recording secretary John DeBradley, and that's by Karen Plant, Mindy Collin, and Millie Toth.
Do we have any other nominations before?
Are there any other nominations from the floor?
Okay, ask for motion.
Okay, yeah, is there a motion to accept the slate of officers for 2025?
Yes.
And your name is?
Oh, Joe, email.
Kemal, okay.
With an H, H-I.
Okay, thank you, and is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, what is your name? Okay, thank you. Okay, all those in favor, please vote. Say aye.
Any opposed?
Any? Okay, motion carries.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm honored very, very much to be, and I'm sorry if I gave away Colleen's big secret, but she really wished she couldn't be here today, but anyway, she was looking slimed when she last sent a picture, because I always ask for a picture, I don't just have here. Thank you very much to the committee, you guys did a great job on that, and I appreciate it very much. Yeah, hopefully, oh, well, I was gonna say, yeah, that, I'm gonna put that in the newsletter, that'd be good. Okay, next month, we've got our meeting on December 12th, so we're not having a Tuesday meeting on the 10th, we're just having a Thursday meeting on the evening of the 12th. We're gonna join with Park, Pearland Area Republican Club, and we're gonna meet here, and it's at 6 p.m., and details are to be determined. We're trying to keep it under $30 for dinner, and we're trying not to have Mexican, so we'll see how that goes, because that's the least expensive thing. Did everybody get the newsletter? Was it jumbled up? Deborah, only Deborah got the jumbled up copy. I sent it as a PDF, and I was hoping people got it. If you would like to be the newsletter editor, because now you see how bad I am a big newsletter editor, but you know, please feel free to be it, because we'd love to have a newsletter editor besides me. Would anybody be interested in hearing about the Electoral College in January? Okay, because I was gonna say, because I made a little pitch for Joanne's school on the Electoral College, and I made it in slides, but they were kind of a small group, and we did a Socratic seminar, and we just kind of talked. But I mean, I have slides, and I put a lot of cartoons in there. So if you're interested in the Electoral College, which is obviously not in as much of an uproar, because Trump did win the popular vote, and I think, you know, that really shows he ran a 50-state campaign. You know, in 16, well, and even in 20, he was really going for winning the Electoral College, which is a strategy in and of itself. But this time, he just went for the 50-state thing, so he got the popular vote and the Electoral College. And I think that, you know, obviously that serves him well, because I think that looks a whole lot more like a mandate, and we don't have all of this upset and uproar about the Electoral College. But I think it's good for everyone to know about it, so when people do start having upsets and uproars about it, that they can come back with some good arguments on why we really should have the Electoral College, because our founders were brilliant. Okay, so money to candidates, usually, you know, our reason for being is to give money to candidates. And unfortunately, all the candidates that came reliably and attended the meetings and everything lost, and we can't give, you know, one Republican against another contested Republican primary. So all of our wonderful Republicans who came to the meetings reliably lost. And you know, I hope that's not a bad sign. But at any rate, so I don't know that we really have any candidates that we really need to give money to at this time, but we did figure out that Texas Ethics Commission reporting-wise, it's best to get money in June and December. So if anybody had a candidate that they think we'd like to give money to, and we can't give money to Cruz or Trump because they're federal, you know, let us know. But otherwise, be thinking about trying to get your favorite candidates to attend, because, you know, if they attend a few times between now and June, then I think at the June meeting, you know, we'll vote on what candidates we want to give money to. And I realize that's an off season, but it's good to build up your war chest, to have money, to keep competitors away, and all kinds of good stuff like that. So, so there's that. So, anybody who wants to join, your membership now goes through the end of 2025, and we're extending membership opportunities to Park. If Park members want to be associate members, we would love you to do that. So right now, they're not voting, but we have had a suggestion that we make the Park associate members voting members, even the men. So we'll discuss this in our executive offices, and then we'll get back to you on, you know, having y'all vote on whether we want to do that or not, because that would be a change to the bylaws. And then we have our speaker, and to introduce our speaker is John DeBradley. Oh wait, before we do that though, let's go get lunch. Okay, let's restart. Everyone's looking at me hungrily. Okay, let's do lunch. Huh? Oh yeah, park meeting. Okay, oh yeah, we've got all this other. Okay, while you're getting in the lunch line, just lunch quietly. We've got for the park meeting, which is Thursday evening at the VFW Hall on Walnut in Pearland, which to me is far Pearland, but it's not even as far as really the town center. But it's like 10 minutes rather than 5 minutes from my house. But anyways, they're gonna have Paul Perez, and he's gonna talk about the border crisis. And so of course, he's coming from Mar-a-Lago, so he will have great recent updates for what's going on there. So I think, as long as we can take this victory lap, as long as we can keep singing and dancing and being happy about, all our great victories. And, Joanne posted on Facebook yesterday that now we have the majority in the House, so I don't care what all those other websites say. We have the House because Joanne says we have the House. Yeah. Well, yeah, there we go.
Is that a rhino-proof house?
Well, no, that's just barely, that's hanging on by her little fingernails. So everybody, everybody get up there. Christina also has a great event. And so anyways, here's the flyer, and what might be a great idea is to snap a picture, we're gonna put it right here at the table. And maybe as you go by to lunch, snap a picture of that Thursday night at the VFW Hall. And they have surprisingly good hamburgers there. I don't know what you're serving to eat, but you can buy a hamburger there, and you're supporting the VFW.
So I'm going to tell you a little bit about, because my husband and I are big supporters of the new people that took over the canteen restaurant that's over at the VFW, and we really like the couple. They're actually from Friendswood, and he is a retired Green Beret. He served our country for 30 years, all kinds of special ops and so forth, and he's trying to make a go of it, and they have great hamburgers, hot dogs, and then I push them to do salads like kind of like the fried chicken, and also grilled chicken. And so they're expanding their menu. It's not a fancy place, and yes, you can get the food to go, but they're open from 5 to 10 Tuesday, I believe, through Saturday. So it's oh yeah, she loves the BLTs there.
And their prices are good too, because I think they're for the cold water trainer.
And so I was doing some special ops myself on TikTok, and I found some TikTok videos of his. So I didn't really realize they put about 10 hours of work from getting the food to serving the food in the canteen. And so it's important to tip people. I had no idea. So it's, you think because they're just giving, but they don't make much money, so the prices are kept cheap, but think about tipping when you go to check them out. All right, thank you, ladies.
I wanted to do special ops on eating some more. That's what I was hoping to say. Okay, then Christina gave me this flyer, and the first word is unpronounceable. But it's a volunteer choir military of Vietnam, the next generation. So, and I'd like to say that Christina has the longest name that can fit on a badge. So Christina, you can talk a little bit about your program.
Yeah, we do all the like national anthem every Sunday over there, Bella. And this Sunday we have the party for Trump One over there, States of America, and we have 10-year my group and the party for 10 years.
So yeah, a celebration of Trump. Okay, here, let's get a picture of me and Christina. Flyer like that. Okay, so I'm going to put this flyer next here, so as you're going by, you can get this one for yet another Trump One celebration, because I think we've just got to hit this hard. We've worked hard, and we deserve to have a long victory lap. And we don't want to rub it in anybody's face, but we do want to enjoy it. So everybody go grab your lunch, and then we'll have Jonna introduce our speaker. Did you get your lunch already? Okay. Because otherwise I was just going to trip Cindy and let you. Yeah, John, just come on and get it. Okay. You think you got it going on? doesn't run it, she should get the credit anyway. But right over there on Highway 3 between Pine Rock and 2351, and so that's fairly nearby to just about everybody. So she's got a bunch of handouts, and she's going to hand those out. And what do we have coming up? Oh, this is call Senator Cruz's office. Okay. 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 But yeah, I hope everybody got that call to action. That's how you know if you're on the distribution list, is if you got that call to action for the members. If you got that call to action this morning that said basically, that call Cruz's office and tell him that you don't want anybody who has a lower score than Nancy Pelosi as majority leader. So you don't want Cornyn and you don't want the, because right now he's on the supporting Cornyn list. And I mean, maybe he's gotta be there. And ideally it would be good if it wasn't a secret ballot, because if I were people voting, I'd be more afraid, if I was Cruz, I'd be more afraid of Trump than I was of Cornyn. So, I think that should be, but again, Mitch McConnell was the one who got to pick that it was a closed, secret vote. And, Trump has communicated, at least through Elon Musk, that Rick Scott of Florida is his guy, and Rick Scott has like, a 97% voting record with, as to the good.
With MAGA.
Yeah, really, while you're sitting there. Well, and I know, I started posting this on Friday, and by the weekend, his local number was full, and then on Monday, his national number was full, and I thought, well, certainly they'll clean it out, but I don't think they have. But I was going to say, but go to the web, go to Ted Cruz on the web and fill out a form, and say, check other as your topic, and do that. You can do that right now while you're sitting here.
This one, I'll go get another.
Give her the microphone.
But basically, I think Jeanette had networked with Mace Middleton, and she couldn't get through.
No,
And he agrees that we should have Rick Scott as the chair for the Senate, and so Middleton's gonna contact.
And that's another way to go. If everything's full, leave a message for Mace. So again, look at all these things, and then also she's got something on the blue line curriculum with no amendments. So because the next big fight we're gonna have is for the Texas legislature, because Phelan is running again. So Phelan is running for Texas House Speaker. Well, and we have all got to contact, not only May's office, because May's alone, right, but we've got to contact all the state legislatures. Go to their X, go to their Instagram, go to their Facebook page and comment. Some people say that doesn't count, that doesn't help, but I can't hurt. Any legislator who doesn't want to hear from the people shouldn't be in any legislature. Okay. How can I get
Before you get any or all right, got you burned them.
Yeah.
I wrote it down for him, I underlined every letter.
Heather, you want to talk?
Third time.
Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna give you the microphone.
You would think I was crazy. Well, they kept because they said we weren't reading it.
Yes, good morning. Heather Harris here. I'm the coordinator of the Salt Lake Ministry at Clear Lake Church of the Nazarene. Y'all have heard from me several different times. We believe in prayer and action. And I've brought a number of different things to you in the past. Today we have two very big ones. All of you are familiar with Julie Pickering. She is on the Texas State Board of Education, and she is involved in this new Blue Bonnet curriculum that's being presented now to the board for their approval to be included as a possible alternative to the current education curriculum being used in Texas. Now, 23 other states are interested in this curriculum. It is biblically based. Well, let me rephrase that. It has elements in it. The English language arts section has elements in it that are biblically based. And there's going to be a vote on it on the 19th of this month. We need to go before the State Board of Education and present our case that we need more moral curriculum within our state's education agency. So, to that extent, we are asking that you please get out your phones right now and place a call to the State Board of Education. Please support the Blue Bonnet curriculum with no amendments. I have laid some sheets on your tables. It's the 2-page sheet. It has this telephone number on it in front. Please feel free to take it home, share it. We need to do this for our children, our grandchildren, and for those for our neighbors' children, because they're the ones that are going to be in control as we age. We need this curriculum to be passed. We need to get this done. There are 3 members on the board that are on the fence, and they need to hear from us. I've not been told who they are. I know it's not Julie, and it's not the one who is representing Harris County, because she is a flaming liberal. But they, all of their names and email addresses are listed on here. Feel free to please contact them and encourage them to support this, but please, right now, get your phones out, please. Normally they ask you put your phones away here, but I'm asking, get your phones out now. Make this call. Make this call and make a difference for our children, for our grandchildren, for our neighbors' children, for our future. We need this. So that's one thing. The other thing is, no, it is a phone. It's a phone. It's a phone line. It's not the text line. It is a phone line. Give your name, say that you are a Texas resident, and encourage them to say something to the effect, please support the Blue Bonnet curriculum with no amendments. This is a telephone line. If we're recorded, they are required by law to record the number of people in support of issues. All of our legislators and agencies are required to do that. Please do this, and please share. Please share this information with us. Please go ahead. This is the 2-page. Yes, ma'am. Please email those people, encourage them to support this. There are 3 people on the fence. They need one more vote. But there are 3 people on the fence. I just wanted to find out. I guess the idea is encourage all of them. It's more support for them. So please take a moment. Please go ahead and do that. I know you're eating. Please do that. Area code 512. Call, please. 512-463-9007. And ask them to please give your name, say you're a Texas resident. Please support the Blue Bonnet curriculum with no amendments. That's fine. That's perfect.
And how do you know if it goes through?
Please support the Blue Bonnet curriculum with no amendments. Give a couple minutes to do that. We'll talk about the other issues.
Some of this stuff is just going in a purse. Oh, you're so tiny, you can't eat that much food. I'm just teasing.
leave a message. If you can't get through, if you have opportunity to leave a message, please do so.
Well, they put it in amendments in the Luciana's books, so that's started.
Is it okay for us to make copies of this and share at HRM?
You have to have what?
So if they have a whole menu, I'm not sure which one to pick in the menu, and they say press start or something. So we need to know which. No, I mean, if you could get a live person, I guess if you know the thing, you can call yourself and see what the different ones now.
Okay, well, so right now, let's go with, John, have you gotten to eat? You're still waiting to eat? Okay. Okay, why don't we go with the introduction of our wonderful speaker? And at least he's mostly gotten to eat. Now he's looking at my lunch kind of hungrily.
So we better get this program going, because it's right on, it's just about exactly.
Thank you. I'm pleased to introduce our speaker today, Mr. Greg A. Goodnight. Greg A. Goodnight is a retired professional chemical engineer with a current focus on climate science and public policy analysis. Prior to retirement, he worked in the chemical industry for over 30 years in production, technical services, and consulting. Beginning in 2000, he was employed in the financial services industry as an equity analyst of U.S.-based chemical companies with special focus on commodity chemical production and feedstock analysis and company financial and valuation assessments. Join me in welcoming Mr. Goodnight.
When I accepted the opportunity to address you guys, it was a little intimidating, not because I believe what Mark Cuban says, that Republican women are intelligent. I'm married to one, so I know they're extraordinarily intelligent. But it is a massive area, and it's very connected politically, and it's important to understand what's going on, not only from a scientific standpoint, but from a political, sociological standpoint. So when I try to distill my 6 years of studying this very intensely, what I'm going to do today is give a very high-level look at it. I'm going to focus more on the sociological, political than the scientific stuff. We could be here all year if we really wanted to focus into the science. So the first thing I want to ask everybody is climate change real? Can I see a show of hands who believes it's real?
Nancy raised her hand, so I'm raising my hand.
See, I told you Republican women are intelligent. Yes, it's been changing for 4.2 billion years. And we've gone through the ice ball Earth, we've gone through the hothouse Earth, we've gone through dinosaurs. Climate has changed, it will change in the future. Now, the real question is it severe? I will typify climate. If you look at global temperatures, how many degrees have we gone up on the average, would you guess? 10 degrees, 1 degree, 5 degrees, you know, how much? We've gone up 1 degree in 100 years. Everybody agrees that, 1 degree. And is this natural or is it man-made?
I don't know, but I can go about 10 degrees.
It is 85% natural according to scientific studies. Australian scientist, another woman who was very intelligent, Jennifer Merehousie, has studied it. So yes, climate change is real. Now let me ask this: is climate change an emergency, a crisis? How does it rank on our needs? Should it be the Democrats said that that's their #1 issue, climate change? Let me tell you, climate change is a Swiss Army knife of political corruption, let's say. You can couch all sorts of policies, energy policy, which really runs the world. Energy runs the world. You can couch all that under the heading of climate change. So there's a phrase for this. It's the author named Dave Framboise in Canada says it's the cloak of green virtue. All you got to do is say climate change, you're virtuous, you're intelligent, and all that. No, that's not really it. So let's go through this a little bit. Let's the big picture. This is my conclusion after 6 years of looking at it. The phrase climate change is politics. It's not science. There is a scientific piece of it, but that's the smaller piece. The term climate change has evolved from to climate emergency and climate crisis and all this from global warming. So they develop the terminology and they try to control the language to make it as propagandistic and as alarming as it possible. And as we said, over 4.2 billion years, the climate has continuously changed. And you hear this climate denier. What is climate denier the reference to? Obviously, it's the Holocaust. And they say, well, all these climate deniers, they're trying to say, #1, that you're ignorant, #2, you're immoral. So that's why they use the phrase climate denier, which is, I believe, particularly insulting. I have a network of over 200 really top-notch scientists, and not a single one of them have ever denied that climate doesn't change, and not a single one of them is in the low moral character that the phrase climate denier would presume. So the language, control of language is a typical totalitarian attempt to control an issue. You see this all the time, where they'll, name calling is really it's become a political art. So let's talk about the narrative. Now, climate change is a narrative. What is a narrative? A narrative is a story. So you have climate change, and the narrative is that the primary driver of the globe's climate is the emission of greenhouse gases, primarily CO2 from the burning of fossil fuels. This will result in supposedly runaway global warming, and the solution to the problem is elimination of fossil fuels and putting in renewables or carbonless materials. So that's the narrative. That's what they want you to believe. And in an auxiliary to that is the extreme weather hypothesis. What this means is that they're saying that global warming or so-called climate change causes hurricanes, causes floods, causes tornadoes, causes A, B, C, D, E, F, G, which we all know in short term is weather-related events. Everybody remember Dr. Neil Frank, the famous weatherman, Channel 13. He's in my network. He has a great presentation, and it turns out the worst hurricane season that there ever was in 1494. Way before the invention of the SUV or the burning of fossil fuels, which happened really after World War II. So this extreme weather hypothesis is there are whole organizations of teams of lawyers that are trying to get sue oil companies under the same sort of theory that they went after the tobacco companies. So there's a lot of money involved in this, but quite honestly, if you look at the data, the extreme weather hypothesis, in other words, CO2, the greenhouse gases causing radical weather events, doesn't hold water from a scientific standpoint. And we could go through that. Neil Frank has an entire 1-hour presentation on that, but trust me at this point. There's a quote from a British guy, H.L. Mencken, that says, "The whole aim of practical politics is to keep the populace alarmed and hence clamorous to be led to safety by an endless series of hobgoblins, most of them imaginary." So this is really what's going on. And let's go to the next one here. Okay, the use of fear for gaining power. This is what's driving this whole climate change issue. Humans are naturally and fundamentally afraid of drowning, fire, freezing, suffocation, extreme weather events, etc., etc. So what the scam is that they're trying to typify climate change as the world's going to fall apart, it's going to burn up and everything if the climate keeps going like it is. And they pick data points to prove their point, but really what they do is cherry pick weather events and go. So there's a triangle that Malthus came out that human beings have basic needs, and at the bottom of the needs you have to satisfy your safety and physiological needs, and before you can move on to the higher level of self-actualization. So this is the Malthusian hierarchy of needs. So what they're trying to do is shake the very basis of your security. So they tend to focus on the safety aspects and the weather-related. Everybody's afraid of extreme weather. Now this is intentional. After World War II, scientists had finished the Manhattan Project, and that was a sort of a gravy train for the scientific establishment, so they said, what's next? Well, they had a conference, and what they decided is climate change really fits the bill, because number one, you cannot solve it locally. It has to be international, an international solution, a coordinated international solution. So the scientists got together at a conference, and you may recognize famous anthropologist Margaret Mead, and this is another whole story. But anyway, the statement from this Fogarty conference, what we need from scientists are estimates presented with sufficient conservatism and plausibility, but at the same time, free as possible from internal disagreements that can be exploited by political interest. In other words, reasonably plausible scenarios that allow us to start building a system of artificial but effective warnings which parallel the instincts of animals to flee before the hurricane. So this was a strategy by the scientists to pick a topic and drive the human population so that you could propagandize them and basically exploit the issue. So that's when all this stuff happened. Now this is a paradigm for controlling the masses. This is what's going on. They identify a scary, hard to understand issue that can drive the public. Climate is 1 degree more complicated than weather, and everybody knows weather. Predicting weather, nobody is able to predict weather very well. So it's very complicated. So you got this thing that people don't understand. You identify groups that can benefit in particular ways and help drive this scare story, the narrative. Then you exaggerate the risk, you minimize the cost, and you win the language war. This is what's been going on since 1989. James Hansen started this in Colorado. He was from Colorado. Then what you do is you co-opt organizations that give legitimacy to this scare story. The church, the press, professional organizations, the scientific societies, and a lot of the popular movements. So you make your mission their mission. And then what you use this to increase the power of government to mandate changes, electric vehicles, think electric vehicles. You gain more power and money. Now, what the problem is if all these scare stories don't come into reality, which has happened. I mean, they do surveys on how the public perception is on this climate change, and climate change keeps continually working its way down the surveys, so people are just not interested. It's 9th, 10th, 11th thing on their priority list. So what do you have to do? Well, first thing you have to, as the public interest wanes, disasters don't arise, you beat the drums harder. Every year they have a UN climate summit. The 29th summit is going on in Azerbaijan as we speak. They're beating the drum in a country that 90% of its exports are fossil fuels. So we'll see how that goes. We'll see if they get thrown out of the hotel or whatever. But they're huge conferences. There's a guy named McKay that he wrote a book about the madness of crowds. McKay said, men has been well said, think in herds. They will be seen to go mad in herds, and they will recover their senses slowly, only one at a time. So this is a good book, Charles McCain. Now, what has happened in the past? This is a sociological phenomenon. And what the South Sea bubble, have you heard about that? That was it was one of the first stock market bubbles that happened. You had tulip mania, where the price of tulip bulbs got to be, in current terms, $10,000 a bulb. The witch hunts in Salem and the U.S., by the way, which were linked to climate. If the climate got bad, they burned a few witches. The climate got better, say, look, we fixed the problem here. And there's a lot of records and evidence on that. Now, where is the alarmism coming from? It's not the past. They say, okay, well, yeah, we haven't fallen off the ditch and things have not discombobulated, but it's going to happen. It's going to happen. The UN has set a 1.5 degree maximum. Remember, we've gone up 1 degree, and they say at 1.5 the wheels will come off. Well, they had it at 2, and it was obvious we weren't getting to 2, so they lowered it to 1.5. So we're only a half a degree from Armageddon. Baloney. Here's where they get the alarmism. These are the models. They're like over 30 models globally, and these are climate models predicting the temperature going out. And this is the increase in temperature. And you see the models, the average of the models is the red curve. And normally in science, if something is this far from reality, you throw out the average and you take the best model. Now, what's the best model? Well, this is the Russian model right here. It's the one that's good. But that's not politically acceptable because they spend, these models actually are millions of dollars per run on these models. So everybody gets their model. All these universities get their models and all that. Well, this is the average of the bad models, okay? This is reality. These are the balloons and the satellite temperature data. So you can see what's happened since this big scare started and the dire prediction started. The reality has diverged from models. Where does the scare come from? Well, they're saying according to our models, by the year 2100, if we don't shut down fossil fuels, we're going to all burn up. Well, it's baloney. The scare tactics are coming from these models that are so-called not fit for purpose. They haven't predicted accurate temperatures in the past. They won't predict it in the futures. Net zero, everybody heard of net zero by 2050? They want to eliminate all fossil fuels by 2050. It is pure insanity, pure insanity. But the point here is the alarmism is the models. It's not reality, it's not the current trends, it's the models. Now, we talked about natural. What these are, this is the temperature difference. The natural cycles are called Milankovitch cycles, and they have to do with the tilt of the Earth, the rotation of the Earth around the sun, and all this sort of thing. And what happens is we're on 100,000-year cycles, and the temperature spikes up every 100,000 years, okay? And in this period here, these periods that are spiky are the so-called interglacial periods. And this last one, which we're in right now, the last one's called the Holocene interglacial. That's what we're in. We're in the middle of an ice age now, but we're in a 10,000-year interglacial called the Holocene interglacial. Now, the history says we're going to go back to these cold temperatures. And it could be fairly soon, because either 10 to 12,000 years, we're already on borrowed time. So if we shut down all our fossil fuels, you know what happened in Chicago when they tried to plug in the electric cars in the middle of an ice storm? They didn't work too well. So if this happens, we've correlated very poor conditions, very crop failures and bad problems in ice ages. We had a little ice age about 1804. Remember Washington and Valley Forge? Remember Napoleon's retreat from Moscow and all that? That was called the Little Ice Age, which was a low period in this interglacial. Okay, so is this saying annoying to anybody? But anyway, so this happens every 10,000 years. So these are our natural cycles, and we're very lucky to be in a warm period. Now, I talked about the last 10,000 years. And then everybody says, well, this is the hottest it's ever been. Well, not true. What happened is the Ice Age, this interglacial started about 10,000 years ago. And historically, there have been warm periods within this band. And we're in the current one called the modern warming period right now. And we're recovering from what's called the Little Ice Age. So when they say these temperatures are increasing, they're warmest ever, no, it was a lot hotter. Roman warm period, they tried to erase the medieval warm period. Michael Mann, if you know that name, they tried to erase this, and the Minoan warm period was even hotter than that. So when they say hottest ever, what do they refer to? Well, they're talking about the last 160 years, the so-called period of the instrumental record. We've only had thermometers for 160 years, and really the quality of their temperature reading has only been good about the last 80 years. When they say hottest ever, they certainly don't mean 4.2 billion years. They don't mean 10,000 years. They don't even mean 500 years. They don't mean, it's baloney. If you hear hottest ever, coldest ever, forget it. Their ever is 100 years, which is not a very big percentage of 4.2 billion years. Okay, so this is a perspective on this so-called hottest ever. They want to alarm us. Now, this is the killer chart. If I can show one chart to anybody, this is a chart. This is the Little Ice Age. Okay, so it's basically cold. So what you have here is temperature versus time, and this is 1659. Now here's the issue. Look how the temperature has been trending up since the end of the Little Ice Age. Now the blue curve is the use of fossil fuels and the total carbon emissions, which really started accelerating after World War II. Okay? So they're saying, well, all this CO2 is causing our temperatures to go out of control. If we don't stop it, we don't shut down fossil fuels, we're all going to die. Well, here's the problem. The temperature started going up 200 years before current and before we started using CO2. So they're saying, okay, you look at this point and this point, the CO2 has gone up here and the temperature has gone up here. Case closed. Now wait a minute. The temperature started going up a long time ago, way before carbon was added. So how can a cause, an effect precede a cause? If the effect is temperature going up, the cause is CO2, how can, as a sequential basis, CO2 have caused back here when it didn't even happen back here? So if you look at this one chart, this whole global warming hysteria and craziness doesn't hold water, period. Case closed. You got one chart and it destroys the global warming hypothesis. Okay. Everybody get that? This is the money chart. Okay? And let me tell you, this is money. Okay. Okay. Now we talked about natural causes and what happened during the Little Ice Age. Well, this is the plot of sunspot cycles. Okay. The sun interacts with the climate and the greenhouse effect. And what you have here is the sun goes into periods of higher activity and lower activity. And it turns out the lower activity correlated to the cold parts in our Holocene area. And if you look at, we're about to go into another lower activity area with respect to the sunspots. Now, I'm not going to get into why sunspots and solar activity correlated to temperature, but this is something to keep in mind, that these people that say it's only CO2, the UN, their whole, their definition, the Rio conference saying we're going to look at the climate change, but they did not authorize looking at natural causes of climate change. They're assigning any climate and any differentiation, any temperature increase to only CO2 and the greenhouse effect. So they're missing half the problem, but that's intentional because they want to assign everything to CO2. So the sunspot cycle is important. There are like 14 of these others. Now here's the other killer chart. Okay, this is CO2 emissions by country in terms of gigatons per year, okay? Now what you'll notice is here's the United States. The United States has been relatively flat at about 5 gigatons per year. In fact, we've gone down. Why have we gone down? Anybody guess? Gone down because of natural gas use. Natural gas replacing coal. It's less carbon intense. So the point here is we're relatively flat. Now, if you look at other countries, Germany, they spent $1 trillion on wind farms and solar panels. And look where they are. They're almost irrelevant, and they've really just been flat. And by the way, they're destroying their economy. Their energy prices have skyrocketed recently, and all the industry is moving out. Now let's look. Here's China. China is sitting at about 11 gigatons going straight up. Let's see India. And here's India. India's sitting about 2.5 gigatons. They're going straight up. So is developing Asia. So the point here is we could literally shut down everything. Remember COVID? They hardly saw any bump in CO2 and temperature at all. So you could essentially destroy the U.S. economy and not make any difference whatsoever. This is my second killer chart, okay? So this is reality. Of course, what does the EPA say? What do the Democrats say? We have to show environmental leadership. So everybody's going to follow. Well, people aren't following, guys. You can show all the leadership you want, and it's an exercise in futility. Okay, what's wrong with wind and solar? Weather is variable. When you have no wind, you got no power. The energy density of the sun and wind are very low. That gallon of gas has a lot of energy in it. The wind blowing through does not, even when it's blowing. So the energy density is very low. The other thing too is they're very material intensive. If you put up a wind turbine or solar panels, you've dug a lot of ground up to get the ores and the rare earth minerals and all that to do that. So on a material intensity basis, they're like 100 times more intense than nuclear power in terms of the pounds of material to build these things. The wind and solar, people don't understand this, the wind and solar resources are geographically dependent. For instance, you got wind in the central United States up through Kansas, the Panhandle and all that, but you go east or west, you got less wind and it becomes less economical. These people putting in solar panels in Minnesota, good luck on that. Germany can't put in solar panels, they only put in wind. Why? Because you go to higher latitudes, you don't have a lot of sun. Now Spain has a lot of sun, but the point here is you can't you can put in a coal plant anywhere, you can put one in the North Pole or whatever, and you could ship coal to it. But wind and solar, you gotta put the stuff where the is. So wind and solar, because of the intermittency, raises costs because you're not displacing nuclear, coal, or natural gas. You're adding it. You've got separate systems, and this is why when these solar people and wind people say, well, it's cheaper. It's become cheaper. The cost of no. The problem is you do not displace and shut down coal. You duplicate systems because you got to have the stuff that runs when you need it. Every place that's put in wind and solar, prices go up. My electrical bills at flat usage and with natural gas going down have gone up 10% a year the last 2 years. Why? Because wind and solar resources are going up, and we got to pay for the end of the day when when the wind and solar isn't available. Greenhouse effect is real, but what is the greenhouse effect? It's not only CO2, but water vapor. Water vapor is the most significant greenhouse gas, but it's never mentioned in the reports because they want to put the focus on CO2. And why? Because they can control energy and control oil and gas industry. CO2 is only 420 parts per million. Who here knows what a part per million is? How big is a part per million? Eensy, weensy, weensy, weensy. A part per million is 1 times 10 to the minus 6.
You're getting technical now.
Eensy, weensy. So, you see the number 420, but 420, my wife will tell you, is only 0.042% of the atmosphere. 0.042%. that's not a lot, and it goes up 2 parts per million a year. So it's gone up a steady 2 parts per million a year, and it is due primarily to burning fossil fuel. But going up 2 parts per million a year, the effect, the temperature effect of that 0.2 is very, very small. Okay, people don't understand 420 parts per million. They say 420, that's a big number. No, it's 420 times 10 to the minus 6. Very small. Okay, so that's people do these arguments, have these arguments, and they always do it on a qualitative basis, not quantitative. Qualitative means, well, this affects that, that affects that, that affects. Yeah, but if it's a very, very small effect from a quantitative standpoint, you know, don't get so upset about it. And that's what's going on. Okay. Okay. Now people say tipping points. Well, you got tipping point. Well, we're going to the fear factor is, okay, well, we're getting there, and when we reach this point, boom, everything's gonna blow up. Okay, that's the tipping point argument. Well, there's a lot of sciencey stuff that says tipping points are not real. I'm not going to spend a lot of time, but we're around here, 420 parts per million. As the CO2 goes up, the effect of adding more CO2 goes down. So you have to double the CO2 from 400 to 800 to get 1 more degree, and then you got to go from 800 to 1600 to get 2 degrees. Well, let me tell you, you could put in coal plants. China's putting in 1 coal plant a week, and they've done it 2 years, for 2 years. And they're going nuts on putting in coal. But the issue is on this tipping point argument is all the science says no. It's self-regulating on the downside. It is not on the upside in terms of tipping point, everything getting out of control. So I won't spend any more time on that. Here is one of the problems with wind. The wind turbines, you get 100% output at about 27 miles an hour. We average in the spring about 13 miles per hour wind, but in the fall it goes down to 9 or 10. And at 9 or 10, you're only getting like 30% of an installed capacity. So you may have a wind turbine with 100 megawatt installed capacity, but in the fall you're only get 30 of the 100 megawatts. So your installed capacity versus delivered capacity is very low factor, and it's very seasonal. The other thing that's going on right now is in Germany, you have these droughts that are going on. Now this is, if you're in ERCOT, this is ERCOT's power generated from wind over a year. Now you're trying to control the whole grid and keep people's lights on, and this is what wind is doing to you. And you got to take those gas plants and all that and jack them up and down and back and forth and all that, so you can allow this wind to go in. So this is a real problem for ERCOT, and it's a problem for a lot of reasons. But one of the things that happens is you go through these wind droughts, and wind droughts are universal. They have in Germany, they have in the UK, and we have in the US. And what you have on wind droughts is this situation, where you'll have a week or so where there's very little wind. That's going on in Germany right now. They're like at 5% of their installed capacity, and you do not save electricity. Their batteries are irrelevant. They're so small, so expensive, they're absolutely irrelevant. So you have these wind droughts that last 1 to 2 weeks. And there's another one that happened early in the year, just before the March pickup. So anyway, wind droughts are a big problem. Balancing the grid is hard. As you get more and more renewables in, what happens at the end of the day, there's a shortage. When the sun goes down, the wind picks up in the evening. This is what's driving that 10% price increase every year, the last 2 years. This is so-called peaking power, if you've heard the term. They have plants that are just shut down. They don't run until you need them, and you turn them on once a day, and you charge $5,000 a megawatt hour, and normally it's 50. And these plants, for them to be successful economically, you got to charge a lot of money in this period of the day of short. That's why your prices are going up, because of these so-called inefficient peaking plants. And why do you need peaking plants? Because wind and solar shuts down your reliable stuff. Now, the wind and solar paid for this $5,000 a megawatt hour energy cost at the end of the day. And the answer is not only no, but AGLL no. You know, they're not going to pick this up. They're on the receiving side of the benefits. Okay. So I'm in the home stretch here. Okay. All right. Now here's what's happening at ERCOT. And I started looking at this when Uri happened. I looked at this like 3 or 4 months before Uri, and I said, you know, I need to study Texas. Texas can't be as messed up as California. There's no way. We got a lot of engineers here. We got a lot of smart people, especially Republican women, right?
Right.
Right? Give me a yeah. Yeah. Okay. All right. Here's the story. Back in 2008, we basically had nuclear, gas, and coal. You can see coal is this gray area here. Gas is orange, and nuclear is the blues. Now this is what's called dispatchable. When you want it, you can turn up the knob and get it. Okay, dispatchable power. Now, are wind and solar dispatchable? No. No. You get them when the wind's blowing or the sun's shining, and that's it. And you can't turn them up and down. So what's happened is with the federal subsidies, the state subsidies, and all the goodies we throw at the green industry, the percentage, this is wind, the blue, has gone up, and this is solar. So if you look at the dispatchable piece versus the weather-dependent piece, of the non-dispatchable piece, the weather-dependent stuff has gone way up, and it's now over 40%. So you have to have backup power for this when it goes down. Now what happens when the wind's blowing and all that? In all these plants, what happens? You have to rank, because they have no fuel cost, they're first in. They're as available rather than as needed. So what happens when you get wind and solar pushed into the grid, it pushes out the other stuff. And who pays for the other stuff? Do the costs go away? Do people get fired? When they, okay, the wind's not blowing, okay, you guys, I'm going to lay you off for 3 hours, and no, it doesn't happen that way. So your fixed costs don't get diluted and all that. So I mean, it's a system that's rigged for wind and solar, essentially, and it's not reliable. Now, what's going on nationally is this gray area, which is coal. The EPA has come out with 14 regs that essentially will shut down coal because the green radicals want coal to go down because it provides a hole for them. And they say, well, coal is polluting, it's more CO2. No. Well, first off, CO2 is not pollution. CO2 is plant food. Okay, see, when you talk about greening of the planet, all this CO2 that has gone to 420 parts per million, we were starved. The atmosphere, according to the plants, are starved for CO2, and all the CO2 has caused a 10% net greening for the whole planet. There are areas, say like on the border of the Sahara Desert, that have started greening and all that. So CO2 is basically good, which is another huge story in itself. But let me tell you what's going on right now. There's essentially a war on fossil fuels and essentially a war on coal. Now, how does one convert this scam to money? ESG, have you heard of ESG? What's the biggest component of ESG?
Environmental.
Environmental. And what do they think environmental is? Lower CO2, which is not environmental. That's this climate change fantasy. Environmental, to me, is pollution, real pollution, water pollution, air pollution, NOx, SO2, particulates, you know, the real stuff. Inflation Reduction Act. How much inflation did the Inflation Reduction Act decrease?
None.
Negative. Big negative. It was the Green New Deal recoded. It was the Office of Budget Management said it was $368 million. It's really because the unlimited aspects of it has gone to $1 to $2 trillion minimum. Because number one, they didn't say, okay, we're going to stop the subsidies when we get X percent of renewables. No, it was 20% fossil fuels, then we'll stop the subsidies. Well, that's never going to happen, let me tell you. And they put in so many goodies for the greenies that you just wouldn't believe. for instance, these wind turbines and solar panels, how long do they last versus how long does a coal plant or a gas plant last? Well, about 20 months, they last, if you're lucky, 20 years. I mean, the ones that have been blowing up on the East Coast, offshore and all that. But I mean, they lose efficiency, and the blades have to be replaced, the gearboxes and all that. So you're lucky to get 20 years. Normally, the real life, you got to refurbish about every 10 years. Now, what do they do in the, normally if I put a plant in and I have to pay for maintenance, doesn't that come out of my pocket? Yeah. Well, what they've done with the Green New Deal, the Inflation Reduction Act, is the maintenance on that, they put in a provision where if you maintain the thing, you get your 30% investment tax credit all over again. Okay, so you understand what I'm talking about. Instead of having to pay the maintenance, so the utilities have to pay the maintenance, it's another subsidy. It's another subsidy. But there's all sorts of goodies in this Inflation Reduction Act. So, okay. There's subsidies. I could go on and on about all the subsidies and the scams to promote green energy, but it would take all day. Now, here's the bottom line. If I look at climate change, there are hidden agendas, and I've identified around 20 hidden agendas. The people pushing this are sometimes anti-humanists. You heard of the Club of Rome? A lot of these folks will say, well, we don't need 8 billion people on this planet. No, sir. The optimum number is 500 million. Now, I'm going to decide who the 500 million are going to be, and it's for sure going to be me. But, I mean, this is what you run into. Prince Charles, the Club of Rome.
Bill Gates.
Yeah, King Charles, Bill Gates, all the globalists. So the worst offenders, in my view, the World Economic Forum, Klaus Schwab and the like, is just horrible. This would be another 3 weeks before I quit complaining about that guy. But these are the hidden agendas in the climate change regime that I've looked at. The anti-growthers, the people that want you wouldn't believe the 30 by 30, some people want 30% of all U.S. land reserved to be in its natural state by 2030. And that's an active program in the Biden administration. 30% of all land. All this stuff is coming from the UN and the globalists and the socialists. The nature corridors. They want nature corridor on the East Coast or the East and the West. They want all this, they want everything to go back to nature. And so, anyway, these are all the hidden agendas, and they fit all really neatly. You can sound virtuous and say, I want all this because of climate change, but anti-capitalism, degrowth, social justice, you've heard environmental justice. It is the Swiss Army knife of political cronyism. Okay, so I'll thank you on this. Let me I'll do one thing. I know we went through a lot of this fast. I want to tell you some of the authors. I've read over 50 books, and this is some good one. There's a guy named Jan Lomborg, Copenhagen Institute. He wrote a book called False Alarm. If you look at the books that have been published on climate change, about 300 of them, and I would say a good 80 to 90% are, this is baloney, this is not happening, this is not real. But here's a good one. This guy's very popular, Lomborg, Beyond Lomborg. The head of my CO2 Coalition wrote this book called Inconvenient Facts. This is probably the best short book disputing all of the propagandistic points that the climate alarmists want you to believe. Inconvenient Facts by Greg Wrightstone. This guy is very good. Steve Koonin, who knows who Steve Koonin is? He was Obama's science advisor. But he's come out with his books and the leftists hate him because he's a real physicist, a real scientist. And he says this stuff is really overblown and bad. So the leftists cancel culture this guy. But this is one of the excellent books. A lot of the people in my network have read it and quoted as real science. Michael Schellenberger. Who knows Michael Schellenberger? Come on now, you guys. Schellenberger's an author. He's on Substack.
He was on Greg Gutfeld last.
Yeah, on Greg Gutfeld last. Who watched Greg Gutfeld last? All right, there you go. Schellenberger. He wrote a book called Apocalypse Never. Why environmental alarmism hurts us all, okay? I thought she was taking a picture of me. Okay. Okay. Here's a guy that's really good, Rupert Jarwell. He was an investment banker in Europe, but he's written the best books about the green tyranny. This is basically, if you go back to the green movement, it goes back to socialism, it goes back to the UN, a guy named Bert Bolin, and it's really a way to control society, okay?
I have a question. Out of those books that you're showing us, for the layman, what is the easiest read?
I would say this Inconvenient Facts. If you want the science, Inconvenient Facts is the best. If you want the background, background on the book, Green Tyranny, is excellent because it goes through the socialism and it's a political. This is a political. The Green Party, the political movement. The Great Reset. Glenn Beck. Everybody knows Glenn Beck?
Yeah.
What this talks about, the Great Reset, remember one of the hidden agendas is they want, the Great Reset means we're going to get rid of global capitalism, we're going to go into wealth redistribution, we're going to go into the elites running the world, which is the World Economic Forum. Klaus Schwab, the World Economic Forum. But climate is something, we got to save you. We got to rule the world. You got to give us all the decisions in your hand. So that's what the World Economic Forum is about. This is a good friend of mine wrote a book called Climate Scam. And this is John Chismadia. He was in Colorado at the time, he lives now in Florida. But he's gone through the U.S., the development of this issue from 1989. Holdren, who was Obama's science advisor in 1989, they basically worked through this thing in this alarmment. John Holdren, and it's a political. It's really a political movement. It's everything. There are only two other books I would recommend, and you've probably seen them. This is Saul Alinsky, Rules for Radical. Okay. And what he says is what you do with your organization is you take what you want to do, you infiltrate another organization, you make your goals their goals, and that's what's happened. You can see these green climate, and let me tell you, there's no group that's off limits. Well, yeah, well, if you look at the green radicals, they'll take normal organizations, like, for instance, church organizations, and they'll convince people that if you don't push this global warming, shut down fossil fuels baloney, that, go ahead.
What church organization is doing that?
They all are. They all are. Yeah. Go if you want to put climate change in a religious context, the best group is called the Cornwall Alliance. The guy there has figured out, a guy named Cal Biesner has figured out how the greenies are using these organizations. And let me tell you, they will use all the organizations. After I worked on this so long and so hard, one of the things I finally said is, man, this is all familiar. So I went back to my high school stuff, and I got this book called 1984 by George Orwell. And let me tell you, this in spades. The language control, it is not science. They memory hole stuff. They change the language. They change the data. Oh, you wouldn't believe the corruption going on with the data, where you can look at the data 20 years ago or whatever, and all of a sudden the trend was like this. It's been changed by the government. Now the trend is this. They change the data to fit. They change the facts.
Have they steal elections?
Yeah, it has to do with. Yes, go ahead.
When are you going to run for office?
I don't know. I tell you what, one of the things I decided about 4 years ago is to become politically active, okay? And by politically active, I try to find the people that understand this stuff. And I will give a shout out to Mays Middleton. He's a brilliant guy. He's an engineer. He runs an oil company. Originally they avoid you like the plague, but after a while, after I've been his ear so many times, he now sends me stuff that says, okay, yeah, the grid inertia by wind and solar are destroying our reliability. And he sends me a technical article on that, and I said, Mays, love it. You got it. So anyway, but he doesn't run for me now when he sees me. So, but he's excellent. Well, he acts like an. I guess I thought he was an engineer. But I mean, he's good. And there are some people that get it. But let me tell you, the wind and solar people are spreading money around all over the place. In Austin, here's the scam. You can get laws and subsidies and all that from the government. It goes to the it goes to the companies. The companies fund the research. The government funds the research. You only get one side of research. You only get the side that says, "Yeah, man, this stuff's bad. We gotta fix it." And then it goes around to the press. The foundations feed the press money. For instance, the AP coordinates the propaganda for everybody. The Associated Press. And you read this stuff, and it just, you lose it. Now, the textbooks, we've looked at the textbook. We're working with Julie on the textbooks. And they, unfortunately, in terms of the climate, infiltration, the propaganda infiltration in the textbook is still going on because they have this so-called next generation science standard, which is run by leftist teachers out of, national organization. And what they've done is they sprinkled in the propaganda, fossil fuel bad, global warming bad, the sea level rise. I mean, all this stuff is just crazy. But they've been very successful, and they see this as a virtue. They see taking the science and twisting it to ends. They're smarter than everybody. They're going to save us all, and it's okay if you propagandize, you change the data, you increase the fear factor. They see that as positive.
Another question. Do you believe that there is weather modification going on? You hear about DARPA, and I thought that maybe you might know.
Actually, I don't believe there is. Now, there has been a proposal by some of the meteorologists and climate scientists and all that, where they think they can stop global warming by sprinkling in some hydrocarbon-based, additives. And if it were the political right that said this, they'd be going crazy. But they propose. Some scientists propose weather modification. It's all based upon the presumption that global warming is bad and it's happening and it has to be counteracted.
But I thought that Bill Gates wants to dim the sun, like he's.
Yeah. He's nuts. He's totally nuts.
From your perspective, it's not possible, even though people were putting out stuff.
I'm not an expert in the area. I would doubt that it's an effective solution to a non-existent problem. That's the problem. But that's what we have. We got all these solutions are for a non-existent problem.
But are they trying to depopulate using weather modification so that they?
I don't know. I have no idea. I wouldn't put it past them. Yeah, Millie?
That's kind of what I was going to ask you about was, I was up in Reno, and all the chemtrails that they had up there and in Vegas, in Nevada, I see it more, but I've seen chemtrails here in Texas.
Yeah, you do.
My understanding is chemtrails are mainly a phenomenon associated with water vapor. They're not a big.
No, you see planes driving.
I know, but
flying across it. I mean, intentionally doing that.
You're trying to counteract chemtrails. Well, chemtrails are not an issue, really.
You don't think so?
No. I've read on that. It's associated with pressure and water vapor. It's not an issue. And CO2 itself is not an issue.
So you don't believe that there's chemicals in the population?
I think you
No. Chemtrails are not an issue. All this stuff is expensive, ineffective, solutions to non-existent problems. I mean, if you go to the energy, we get 82% of our energy from fossil fuels, our primary energy. And they've spent trillions of dollars. Germany in particular spent over $1 trillion on all these subsidies, and we've gone from like 83% to 82%. They talk about net zero by 2050. That means no fossil fuels by 2050. This is the new definition of insanity. The amount of subsidies and money they've thrown at green fuels, they have not even been able to keep up with the growth in energy demand globally. Not even the growth in demand, much less displacing the 80%. You know, they talk about electricity. Well, electricity is only part of your primary energy. You know, you got fuels, you got transportation, you got, and so the majority is not electricity. When they talk about electrifying everything, first off, it's not going to fix anything, and second off, it'd be so prohibitively expensive. You know, the acid test in all this, in my view, is you talk to a greenie and said, well, do you believe in nuclear? And if they say no, then you really don't believe your own climate change story, because nuclear is the way that you could get rid of CO2. But, you know, they just want to they want to be against everything. They want to be against nuclear, they want to be against fossil fuels, but when they turn on the switch, they want their lights to come on. So it's, this whole net zero decarbonized society is, it's not reality, it's radicalism. Yeah.
So how do we fight this?
Well, one thing is there is a massive effort to indoctrinate our kids.
Yes.
Massive.
Oh, yeah.
And you got to go through textbooks. You got to get the textbooks fixed, and you got to turn it around. You got to get the propaganda out of the science textbooks. And that's one thing I'm doing. I have a good friend, Marty Cornell, and we're working with Julie, and we're going to try to get the textbooks fixed. It didn't happen last time, unfortunately, because she did not have the resources to get the propaganda out and fix it. We're trying to get a law, a new law passed called Texas Energy Education Act. Okay, I talked to Stephanie about getting Mays going on this, but that's the first thing. Then we can fix TEKS. Then we can get the textbook. We can beat the textbook people up once we get reality in there. But that's one way to fight. I mean, kids will go all the way through college and they'll never hear that what they're being taught is anti-science. It's not reality. And it's the foundation. I went through this, and there are like, I've come up with 1,600 organizations, 1,600 that have climate change, and the climate change scam is the raison d'etre, you know, the reason that they exist. They're 501c3 foundation. You go, I have a list, and the list is huge. And they're all the MacArthur Foundation, the Rockefeller Foundation. These people are throwing money at these groups like crazy.
So does the world have a problem with overpopulation from an engineering and from a science point of view?
That's not something I've studied deeply. That's a philosophical question as much as a results question. But I mean, Malta said that, what was it, 50 million people were all going to starve, and we're at 8 billion. So Paul Ehrlich and you know, the anti-population group, I mean, they're very active, and they're, you know, they believe we're all going to run out of food and all that, and our crop yields keep going up, the yields per acre go up, and the irony is, one of the ironies, is this CO2 is helping crops.
Yeah.
It's crops are going nuts. The yields are going way up. Yeah, go ahead.
What you've been talking about, I'm very interested in. I have a kid in school, but those are long-term of how we fix this.
Yeah.
In short term, we have gotten rid of coal plants all across Texas. Is anybody looking at bringing coal back? And we have some new housing developments on Nassau Road 1, thanks to those coal plants going away.
Well, let me tell you, the coal, you ought to, I have a book that's this thick that has about 20 20 initiatives at the federal level under the Biden administration. And what they're doing is they're changing the regs. For instance, the PM 2.5 reg, which is particulates, it's dust. The Biden administration, with no scientific background, has changed that to 7 milligrams per cubic meter. It was 12 under Trump.
That's gonna get fixed in 2 months.
Oh, maybe.
Yeah, because Lee Zeldin is gonna do something.
We will have to go through, but let me tell you, again, the amount of regulations that have targeted specifically coal, and you know, the Sierra Club has a program called Never Coal, okay? It's very successful. Coal has been going down, and the Biden administration, the cumulative effect of all the regulations they've added, the wastewater rule, particulate rule, you know, they're rule after rule after rule after rule, all targeting coal. Coal, when I talk to the people in the coal industry, and I talk, I mean, they have a gun pointed at their head, and Biden wanted to pull the trigger. Now, a lot of these regs have been finalized more than 4 months before the change in regime, so Trump just can't wave his magic wand. They got to go through the whole rulemaking process once again. And the Democrats knew that. They pushed all this stuff. The Clean Power Plant 2, have you heard of that one? The Clean Power Plant 1 was Obama, and the Supreme Court knocked that down for various reasons. Then Trump came up with his Affordable Power 2, which would affect it. Now, Biden came up with Clean Power number 2. What they said, and this rule has been passed, that you have to go through carbon sequestration, carbon capture, and bury it in the ground, not only on new gas-fired plants, but existing gas-fired plants. That degrades a gas-fired plant 30% and adds a monstrous amount of cost. That's in your regs. And that has to be, you know, it's a battle to the death, because the radicals have had a regulatory assault on the coal industry and fossil fuels in general. So anyway, I'll be happy to stick around and answer more questions, but I guarantee you, we probably run over. I always talk over my time.
Thank you, Greg. I was fascinated by all this, and I think it ties in so well with our political agenda. You know, and some people, you know, are not here today because they wanted to unplug, but, you know, 2026 starts yesterday. So we've really got to get on this. You know, I think that Janet got the pictures of the books, so hopefully we'll get that on Facebook. Do you have an article that we can publish in the newsletter or something? Reprint?
I have, I'll give you a link to, I've given talks at several conferences.
Okay.
And I
Like conference papers?
yeah, I have conference papers, and I give you the links to the.
Okay, because I just think this is a fabulous talk, and I think it ties in so well, because it's not really a fire department. Yeah, well, I thank you all. Great.
I love you all.
Thank you. Okay, well, do we have any